Hey everyone, welcome on into ClayShareCon 2024, and here we are, the start of day 4, our final day, but it's still fabulous. We have so much planned for you today. This is also the day that we're giving away that L&L test kiln, the Speedball Artista wheel, and a Glaze Fountain Deluxe from Diamond Core Tools, along with a bunch of other prizes. So you still have a chance to win those. To do that, you go to clayshare.com, you sign up for our email list, and that's all you have to do. Now, premium members of ClayShare, you are automatically entered. You do not have to do anything at all. You just have to sign up once for emails. Everybody else, premium members, you don't have to. You're already in. No worries. And we'll be announcing those winners at 5:30 tonight. We usually draw the winners a few hours before, so you have until about 3 o'clock today Eastern time to enter. So if you have not entered yet, get on over there on your computer, type in your information, and get signed up so you can be entered. Now, the full schedule of today's events is on claysharecon.com, along with all of the discounts and promos, the list of the giveaways. We also have a really great deal with Clay King for Speedball products. We have a microsite that Clay King has set up. You cannot find it on Clay King. You have to go to claysharecon.com, click through where the Speedball offer is, because that's what it is. It's through for Speedball glazes and underglazes. You click through that, and that will take you to the Clay King site, the special micro site. Whew, I got it all out. All right. Well, we have Alex from Alexandria Pottery Co. here, and she's going to show you how to make a travel mug with this hand-building jig right here, and I'm super excited to see how this works. So let's go on over to her and see how she's doing today. Hey, Alex, how's it going?
Good morning. Welcome to Wisconsin.
Good morning. It looks like Vermont. Lots of snow.
Lots of snow. We just got snow fresh last night, so we're ready to go.
Making it fresh daily.
That's right.
So what you got planned for us today?
Yeah, thanks. Okay, well, welcome. We are so happy to be here. There's already been so much information. I was laughing at your notebook, Jess, just pages and pages and pages. So I am a talker, and I'm going to go fast because I have even more information to give you. So today we are going to work on a travel coffee mug. I'm a coffee drinker, tea drinker. I homeschool 4 kiddos, so coffee on the go for me is just a must. I tried years ago to make a coffee mug on my wheel and fit these silicone tops on, and I was just having some trouble doing that. You don't want any leaking when it comes to tea or coffee, anything hot. So I saw this idea, and I thought it was pretty brilliant, of a one piece, and it kind of excludes this whole extra step of measuring, which I appreciate. So this is my wheel thrown version. I've had this for years, and it's fine. I love it. But it's a little one note, and I was wondering if I could make something a little more interesting with a little more texture. So I know I've been with you for years, and I know that we're all texture junkies, and we all have like these cabinets full of texture secrets, but it's so fun. So I couldn't resist. So my husband has taken the time, and he has developed a hand building jig for me. So looks like this, and I will get into the whole tour of the tool. And the purpose of this was to make a coffee mug that can fit into a standard US cup holder. Because for me, if it's a travel mug, it has to fit in the car. And I've had mugs that I've loved and are really great, but they were too wide and they didn't fit, and then it was just kind of a mess. So with this jig here, it will give you, and I'll have Scott just pan, Scott's my husband, I'll have him pan to just some of the finished ones I've made, just to give you an idea, just get it in your brain of what we're going to do today. So we have a couple different styles of the one piece. We are going to make the single. This is a regular size. It holds about 14 ounces of coffee, which is plenty on the go. And then over here, if you can make this small one, you can for sure make the big one. It's super easy to just upsize. This is your 22 ounce. This is your 24 ounce. The only difference is you will use a silicone sleeve just to keep hands comfy. And then with our bigger sizes, you will attach a handle, easy peasy. So same deal, same one piece. And this will fit into a standard US coffee. Well, I call it a coffee holder. I know it's a cup holder, but what else even goes in there? Okay, so I just wanted to say quickly, just a PSA about shrinkage, because everyone's clay is different. Usually, if you're just selling at market or online, it's not really a big deal as far as size goes, but when we're trying to fit something so specific like a cup holder, it's really important to test. We should test anyway, but if you're like me, sometimes you skip that step. So here is a greenware. I made this yesterday. So this is just straight greenware. And then in comparison to the finished product, it's going to look really scary and big. But as it shrinks, I know my clay shrinks 10%. I use a standard clay 266 or standard 112. If you're using porcelain or something that has a way higher shrinkage rate, you might have to adjust your slab size. I think most of us operate at about the 1/4 inch slab after texture's rolled in. But if you need to make it thicker or thinner, I would just say test it out and make sure that you are fitting your cup holder before you start marketing or selling it. It's just important to do. But once you have it, you have it. So once we got it figured out, I was able to make all of these. These both fit my car and my husband's easily. So that's that on shrinkage. If you have any other questions about fit and slab thickness or anything like that, you can just ask me. Just send me a message. All right, let's get into the fun stuff. So I've got a completely flat, texture-free slab here, which I know is craziness. I am going to show you how you can add texture in while you're building in the middle of your building process, which hopefully is something new or maybe something that you haven't seen before. So I typically use a rolling pin. So I know you recognize the daisies. That's my favorite one. And then I have like the monstera leaf, all that. I like to use the rolling pins if I'm going to put my pattern into my slab. But sometimes I want a little more freedom. So this is the pattern I'll show you how to do today. So I hand carve a lot. And then I came across this sweet little honeycomb pattern at the, not the hardware store, my craft shop. And it's actually made for fondant, but I was like, I'm crazy about this pattern and I wanted to see it on one of these. So by using the jig and by laying in your pattern midway, you have a lot of freedom that way too. And this guy's an example of a stamp that I found, and I'll show you a little bit later. But this is just a regular, big 4-inch stamp that I loved at the store. And I was able to roll this in when I was using my jig. So I'll show you how to do that today. All right, so I've got my slab here. I'm gonna just give you a quick walkthrough. I have basic studio tools, nothing super fancy. The only optional thing that I would say is pretty important is how you're going to treat your rim and how you're gonna treat your foot. But most of these things everyone has. We've got ribs and studio brushes, things like that. So our first decision, what we need to make is how our top is gonna look. So we have our round rim cone and we have our square, which I think I'm going to try your tutorial just with the square mug with the square rim. I think that would be really pretty. So I have a few examples here. So you can see kind of what our end game is going to be as far as rims go. So here is a hand built with the square. And I used, if you just come over here, we have all different sizes. So this is like a 16-ounce mug. I was able to get that nice square rim, round bottom, kind of reverse of what you did on your last tutorial. And then I was able to, on this one, take the square rim cone and then just shift it a little bit to make a star pattern. So you could do that. Here's another example of just a square wheel thrown. And then we have a round rim. And that's what we'll do today, because I think that's a lot of fun. I think most people can start there and then you can move up to different shapes. If you are looking for a star pattern or the square pattern, we don't have a cutter for that yet. This cutter fits exactly. I'll show you how it works. It's made especially for this jig. So your tops and your bottoms are going to come out perfectly. If you are going to try the square rim cone, you'll just want to flip it over, trace it, maybe cut out a bigger circle, and you'll just have to do a little more eyeballing with that until we have a cutter for that. So these are our examples for our rims. I promise that's the hardest choice you'll have to make today. I'm going to stay with the circle one and just set this aside here. All right. Okay, so I know we are going to have a round rim. Now I've got my jig and I'll show you, I'm going to give you a tour of the tool first, and then we'll get the slab on and we'll get rolling with it.
Can we go in closer for the tour of the tool so people can see it?
Yeah, can you come in closer? Yeah. Thank you.
Definitely.
Yeah, just let me know and we'll do what we need to do.
Yeah, that's
a great
good.
shot. We've got Kevin. Thank you, Kevin. Okay, so here is our hand building jig. It is so simple. I always have it upside down. Don't be like me, okay? Just have it the right way up. You'll know it's the right way up when your release tab is facing up. But basically, we have two positions. And what makes this really handy is that you can shrink this mold while it's inside of your wet clay. So it gives you more release function, and you're able to use this over and over and over. So you don't have to have a million of these. You could just take one out, pop it in your next one if you are building more than one mug at a time. So we have two key positions here. I call the first one the neutral. So to get the key in, I just kind of snag one of the holes and then rock it into the next one. And it should slide in no problem. If you have to force that, something's caught up and you just want to maneuver. And then when it comes to releasing, we will take this out and then we'll bring it into our inner position here. A little tighter fit, but you can see it really squeezes the diameter in, and that gives us a lot of ease to just pop this out. It's a hollow form, which you'll see when we're rolling in our texture is really handy. I call it my little hand muffs, like my little hand warmer, and you can just roll it right in. You have a lot of control with that. So that's the jig, easy peasy. We do have two extenders. I'm not going to go extremely far into how to use these. What these do is they pop right onto this jig, and then it gives you, honey, if you come up this way, that's what gives you the 22 to 24 ounce. So the structure building it is completely the same from what we're going to do today. All you're doing is adding on the extra piece to give you the extra height, and then you'll have to change your slab size. But that's really it. So if you do want to try the bigger one with the extenders, easy peasy. All right. So we have our naked slab here. Feels a little exposed with nothing on it. Our naked slab. Today. Naked slab. Okay. So I am going to do a layer of cornstarch. It's just, do yourself a favor. Save yourself the heartbreak. I have forgotten this step, and you're going to say, how much cornstarch is she actually using? It's going to be a lot. I have like trauma from having.
Scott, will you go in closer? We'll have Scott going closer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Get right in there, because
I'm not sure if you can see. Yeah.
Oh, well, he's in a good spot right now. I'll just keep saying move closer or farther away, but it's good right there.
I can't see what's going on, so I'm just like going to assume that it looks good. Okay, so we are going to liberally do this cornstarch here. I've had the trauma of having my slabs stick to forms before. I don't know if anyone else, I feel like there should be a group for us. So I think once you do that, you just don't ever want to do that again. And most of this you'll see will come off in the construction process. And if there is residual, it'll burn off in the kiln. It's an organic material, so it should be no problem. So we've got our slab prepared. This will be the inside. My workflow, I like to put the slab in front. I like to have my jig right here. Can you see that okay?
We
looking good there, Jess?
That's okay. Good. Yes, looks good.
And now this isn't a rule, Scott. We have discussions over this point. I like to have the key facing me because then the seam comes to the key. And I feel like that just makes sense to me. You don't have to do that. That's just how I do it. And I almost forgot, we're going to get our little bevels. We're going to get them scored here. It is likely, this is a 12-inch slab by 5-inch. This is a 5-inch jig. So as long as you have 5 by something, you're able to wrap it around. And then I will see if I need to cut some extra off, or if I need to elongate, I'll do that. So I'm going to rock it up here. And this is the important part. We're going to just dry fit first. I'm not going to make any hard commitments here, but you're going to lift it up, and you're going to want to make sure that you're really snug against this jig. It will loosen up as we add texture because we're going to roll the clay and the clay will displace. So you want to just make sure before you cut, it's like if you've ever stoned before, you're going to measure twice, cut once. So I know I'm a little long there, and I knew that was going to happen. What I wanted to do was just show if you do have your slab that doesn't quite fit, I was just going to show you how to come in here. So I will mark it right there, and I am going to have to face it towards myself to make the cut. So I could lay this back down on the table too, but I'm going to just come through. I like really organic lines, so I don't fuss too much about the straightness of it, but you for sure can. So I'm going to come back through. That feels really good for me there. I'm going to make sure I score this other side, and then we'll add my vinegar slip.
So I'm just going to let everybody know you can get this from Alexandria Pottery Co. I'm going to share the
Thanks,
link,
Jess.
and she's offering 15% off your order today through March 2nd. So you have to use the code ClayShareCon24, and all of that is on ClayShareCon.com under the offers that we have. So I will share that link for everybody right now. They're going to all of March. Whoa,
Yep.
that's that. Yes. So anything on the site, 15% off. So you guys
I know it.
use the code SAVE. That's
You know,
awesome. Thank you.
Oh, of course. There's so much information. I feel like with replays, a week felt really, that stressed me out. So I didn't want anyone to feel like they had to make this choice, so that'll give you some time. Okay. So what you missed here is I just added my vinegar slip. You can see I'm able to handle the slab a ton. Like I'm doing this kind of action because we have the internal structure. I'm able to hold on to this and not lose my cylinder form here. I just made sure I didn't get any vinegar between the slab and the clay. You'll create a glue. And again, our main concern here is being able to get whatever form we're using out easily without completely destroying our piece, right? That's like the goal. So I'm going to come through here. I'm going to just roll this seam. And I've always had issues with my hand building with that big bump, like that peak that it comes to. And that was just always something that I fussed a lot with. And I wasn't really able to get it flat like I wanted. But what I found is that when I started using this jig, I could just roll this seam onto my work surface. So I'll have Scott come down and I'm just going to lightly, we're not trying to break the table here, but I'm just going to lightly rock this seam until I would do it a bunch. I kind of do this and then I look and then you'll see the seam will start disappearing. And then you'll also get a little bit of a thinner. We want to make sure our slab is even all the way around. So as I'm doing one side, I'm going to kind of roll and do the other. So you can already see, I'll have Scott come over top there. It's really uniform all the way around now. I feel like that bump is a non-issue. And I'll give you an example here. I'm like upside down all the time. Not just with pottery, by the way, just in general. So here's a finished form. My seam is here. So I usually put my handle over my seam and you can see on the rim, there's not really a bump there. It's as even on this side as it is on this side. And we'll give you another example with, I feel like the seam was just a little more raised. So you can see that. Whoops. Sorry. All right. So here
Nope,
and that
you're still
side,
vertical. There we go.
Still vertical.
Yep.
Thanks, dear.
It's good.
Oh my gosh, Jess, you missed it in the beginning. I was completely upside down. I was telling Kevin, you're going to have your first upside down presentation, that you've ever had. So anyhow, what we are looking for is just kind of a uniform rim, which is nice for a hand-built piece and can be kind of hard to achieve. So I've got that there. I've got my seam rocked in. I'm not going to take a ton of time to treat my seams here. You get the point. You really want to make sure this is sealed. We don't want any cracking or any splitting. We're not adding volume to this, so I'm fine really sealing it at this point. And then you can use the jig. So I've displaced the clay because I rolled it on my work surface. The clay has to go somewhere. So it ends up kind of going up. So you can get some unevenness in your rim. What I like is I just use the jig. I'll come around like this. And I keep a tiny level in my studio just to make sure. And then when you hit the key, you just kind of rock the knife towards yourself and that'll take care of that excess there. And then you can come in from the left and we'll do a lot of treatment. I kind of spend a lot of time on my rims and bottoms. And then when you come through with the knife like that, you just want to make sure you're releasing just a little bit, just so you're not smushing clay too far in. We're going to come down. We're going to make sure the bottom looks nice and even. If your clay is beneath the top line here, you can just kind of pick a spot, roll it around and take that all the way around. All right. So now we have our seam nice and hidden there. We're going to go ahead and make sure everything's nice and sealed. And then we're going to lay in some texture. We're almost done. Just kidding. I've got so much more to say. Okay. So I'm going to set, I am going to this at this point, friends, I would come through and I would give myself a nice clean surface. Are we okay there? Okay. You let us know if our camera goes wonky, because of course today would be the day. All right, so nice clean surface, nice and flat. you can see I've already handled this cylinder a ton. This is probably more than you would handle something that you were hand building, but because of this internal structure, it stays really nice and in shape there. So I have my honeycomb pattern here. And, why was I wandering the baking section at Hobby Lobby? I don't know. Probably looking for texture. So
Always,
this came,
yes.
always, I'm like, what could I use? So this came in a 4-pack, which came in handy because for the taller form, I did need to put 2 of these together, but handy for us today, this fits almost perfectly onto this sheet. So I'm going to start. I kind of lose texture when I'm using rolling pins. I don't know if this happens to anyone else, but when I'm using a rolling pin, it starts off light and then my pressure increases. I don't know why that is, but I want my seam to really get that impression there. So I'm going to start with the seam up a little higher so it's not the first thing that hits. And I'm going to put my little hand muffs on. It's my technical term. And then I'm going to just roll this. You can use as much or as little pressure. I will tell you, the more pressure you use, the looser your clay will get around the jig because it's thinning out, whoops, and the clay will just continue to displace. But this is a pretty, I would say like medium light pressure. All right, and there we go. Now we have our honeycomb in there. So this is the fun part for me. So I can't just stop there. I'm going to add just a little more detail. And you're able to do, I want to tell you, if you've ever water etched, this is a really great way. You just kind of hold on to your clay. You can put your stencils over like this, hold it, and then you can come through and do your water etching. You can come through with a lace doily. I've done this with a ton of just different textures. So I've used a doily. I've used this kind of stiff fondant plastic. This one was my favorite. And then after Kathy's, oh my gosh, I went into Tailspin.
I know. Now
like,
I'm going to
forget about
monoprint on everything.
And then I'm thinking, okay, I gotta talk to Kathy. Let me know when you go. Because I'm thinking like I can stick my hand in here and we can just roll this over a jelly plate, no sweat.
Yes.
So I've got a whole thing going on. That's going to be basically me for the next months. But anyhow, I think this is kind of is this like a jelly plate maybe? I don't know. I picked this up weeks ago, but when she was talking about it, I was like, this kind of feels like jelly. Anyhow, all I did to use this smaller stamp for my mountain one here, got the little mountains on the side, is I rolled 1/2 and then I just lined it up and rolled the other one. So I was able, nothing's perfect. I wasn't striving for absolute perfection on that one, but the effect was really pretty. So I have tried it on all these different textures. You could silk screen on this. It will show you just a quick example. So you'll see we came a little loose there, and that's to be expected because when you're rolling the clay, it's going to get thinner, but that's no worry. I just kind of keep hugging it in. If I wasn't trying to fit a cup holder, I really wouldn't fuss. That would be fine. But because we do want to keep this narrow form because it needs to fit into something, I would just come back through and check it and just make sure that we are hugged up against that. Now, this clay was rolled out a day or two ago. So this is pretty wet still. I wouldn't normally carve into something this wet, but I'm going to show you. I'm just going to do my vine pattern here. I've been doing this pattern for a very long time. So I'm going to show you how easy it is. I'm holding this cylinder in my hand and it's pretty wet. So this isn't something I would normally do if I didn't have internal structure. It's all about that inner piece.
I think is those new impression stamps from Diamond Core Tools.
Yes, I know it. So
like floral patterns and everything.
He read my mind. I was like, ooh, and then they snap on because I've got like my favorites. I'm like, well, if
Diamond Core Tools,
right on there,
yeah, they snap right on the back.
I know. I feel like we were all syncing up, like something was clicking. I was like, yes, so absolutely. I'm going to snap those on and see what I can do. Now, I won't spend too much time. You might lose me here because this is where it gets really fun for me. So I have this little dragonfly here and I'm just going to pop it on and I'm pushing pretty hard. Okay. This is harder than I would push if I didn't have the structure on the inside. And you're going to see, you're going to get a really beautiful impression there. And then we have to put a little buddy over here. So I will sometimes put my hands in and then I will push from the inside and the outside. I forgot his name, but from Diamond Core yesterday, Nikolai. He was talking.
Yeah.
Thank you. How can I even forget that? So Nikolai was talking and he was saying that it is hard. I can't get this depth of impression if I'm just pushing in on my clay. What happens is the clay kind of caves and the impression is really faint. I'm actually going to give you an example. So this is one I did yesterday. Same deal. little dragonflies. And then I try to push a little bumblebee in after I took my form out. Can you see that, Jess? Can you see the difference
barely
there?
Yeah, I can see it's barely in there.
That's actually kind of the point, right? So like it barely, and then I had to stop because I was pushing my clay and I had to kind of pop it back in from the inside. So I learned a lesson there. I was trying to do it last minute, but it kind of just proves my point. It's really hard to do these stamps when you don't have something rigid on the inside. But with something rigid, you can come through, and I could even take these tiny stamps. I keep thinking like quilting, like you can make a whole quilted pattern like this, and it gives a really nice even impression. So the benefit of this is you could do this on a flat slab, and I do, and I have, and I will continue to, but sometimes I don't know where the pattern's going to lay. So if I plan out like my handle's going to be here, then it gives me the freedom to really lay in my scene. I like to call it the scene I create. So I laid in this meadow scene a few days ago, and I was able to just lay in this little bottom guy. And then I went through and I just kind of freaked out with all my little cute stamps. And I was like, it's a meadow. And I was able to put my dandelions up the seam. So I just had a lot of freedom with where I wanted my design. And I really like that. It just kind of shakes it up a little bit, which I appreciate. Okay, enough about texture, because geez Louise, here I go all day long. So that's just an example of what you can do with stamps there. And then now is the good part. Now we get to remove our jig. Are we good on time? Because,
we're
I expect
good. We have
this
about
to take 3 hours.
we have about 18 minutes. We're good.
Oh, good. Okay, I'm cruising. So
no, you're
here's
good.
our
And if we
top.
have time, people have questions at the end, so we can.
Absolutely.
No
Okay, very good. Okay, so I've got my cylinder here nice and shaped. I've already laid in all the texture I want. I am going to now remove it so that we can add to the bottom, and just make sure you remember what side you're working on, which way is up and which way is down. So here is, I could probably, can you see that? I didn't even have to move the key. Because I've rolled it, this could be a pro tip too. If it is sticking, if you didn't apply enough cornstarch and now you're starting to freak out a little bit, like this is where it's going to live forever, you could probably just do what I did and roll it on your work surface. And that seems to loosen it up a little bit. But I could easily remove this like this. But I do want to show you the change in key position just in case it is a little more sticky. Then you can, like, for example, if I would have pre-rolled texture with a rolling pin, it would stick much more than this. So I'm going to remove my first key here. We're going to click this little guy. There's no place like home. I like to hear the sound. So I'm going to click that. And then what I'd want to do is if this key is jammed up, you could flip it and click the underside too. This key should go in really easily. I'm going to grab one hole. I'm going to rock it to this side. And then I'm going to push. If you've got to like get the mallet out, or you're like, honey, come over here and bang this in, then something's up. It should slide in just like that. You want to make sure that you're not caught up anywhere. Now you can see I've given myself a really nice gap there, so I can easily remove this. Bada bing. And look at our cylinder. So I'll have Scott come over top so you can see what that looks like. There's no way with the amount of manhandling that this would have stayed this, like, I don't want to call it perfect because it's not. There's probably a very fancy term, in shape, without having that
in
core.
round.
In round, thank you. I was going to say like cylindrical, but that felt like a whole lot to say at 8:00 in the morning. Okay, so don't forget your inner seams. Okay, we got stuff going on in here. This is all standard stuff. I learned this move from Jess. You don't want to neglect this inner seam because it's going to bust. You're going to have cracking, and we don't want any leaking, especially when it comes to hot stuff there. So let me make sure I'm at my top here. I'm going to pop in my rim cone. Remember, we decided on the circle, and we're going to flip this. And this is going to be a tiny banding wheel for us until I pull out my big banding wheel, just so we can get the bottom on. Now, if this whole motion seems like a lot of coordination for you, that's no sweat. Just put your rim cone on the table. Because the handle sticks up a little bit above the rim, it gives you this nice spin. I'm going to grab with upside down hands, and I'm going to place that there. Now, I have support for my rim that stays in round. And then I've got this little 360-degree action to apply my foot. Okay, so I have pre-cut. Here is my foot piece, and I've pre-laid in my texture because I like everything to match. This cutter comes with our combo set. You can use whatever you have. It's it's kind of an obscure size. So you might have to just kind of cut in shape. This is like no brain work for me. I can just cut it and I know it'll fit and I like that. And then to make the lid, all I did was cut a second circle and then split it in half. And that gives you 2 lids for every cut. So if you're making more than one at a time, you can kind of just have those stacking up. So I have access to the bottom.
Those lids, we were talking with Nikolai yesterday about making more adaptive pottery for people who have Parkinson's or arthritis or some issues holding cups, doing 2 handles, but that lid would be perfect for somebody like that. If you have a tremor or shake so that you don't spill it just for normal use, not even for traveling. Yeah, no, I think it could be great.
Yeah. For kids, a better
absolutely.
sippy cup. Yeah. You know what? Anyone who has shakes. And I also heard someone say like a mustache cup. That's a thing. I don't have a mustache really.
Oh, that could be a thing. Yes. A mustache cup.
Just to kind of, if you've got like this big creamy latte going on and you want to look manly while you drink your big creamy latte, you can just kind of save your mustache. Or an egg separator. There's a million things. I'm like, I could do a trillion things with this. You could just make a bigger slit here and then you could have an egg separator, which is good to mention. Now that my ADD has kicked in, you don't have to, You don't have to have a 5-inch slab on this form. You could make a smaller form using this jig. So I'm going to just grab more examples. I'm really visual, so I kind of like the example thing. So here is our, I don't even know, 4.75 jig-ish. This made that hand-built mug I showed you in the beginning. But I wanted to make a salt pot. So I just rolled the clay out to where I wanted it. And I was able to use this jig to make this sweet little salt pot. So you don't have to use the full length of it. You can customize for whatever you need. All right, back to our show.
Now the one you're working on now, what is the diameter of that one?
So the diameter of this one is, Scott Menti, a message from our sponsors. Oh boy, he's trying to blink. We'll get you that information. It's like finished or what the diameter is of this one right here.
I think for purchasing, people are wondering. This is the regular rim cones.
Yeah.
The regular Handbuilding Jig is what we got.
Yep. So this is a 3-inch, but what we actually label them, this would be the 5-inch travel. So we go by height, not so much diameter, because our 2 jigs, we have jigs that are the same diameter, but different heights. So if that is helpful.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So sorry for being confusing, but on the website, this is under the travel. It will say travel mug jig. You don't just have to make a travel mug with it, but that's just what we called it. So does that answer your question, dear?
Yes.
Okay, good. Vaguely. So I'm using my little cone. I love this little banding wheel. You were carrying your banding wheel, you said, in your backpack. What was that? I was like, oh my god.
I was in Sika. I would lug that
rolling cart. Oh my goodness. So as I'm spinning around on my little travel banding wheel, I was like, lesson learned for me. Okay, so I'm going to just score that and then I'm going to come in. And when we have the bottom already cut out, it gives you a really nice reminder that this needs to fit into a cup holder. So if this has spread out a little bit, which is possible, when we dry fit the lid, we're going to bring it in so it fits our bottom because we know exactly that is what we need to hit to get into the cup holder. So that'll give you kind of like a checkpoint to make sure you're still on track if you are looking to put it into a cup holder. If you're going to just make a tumbler out of this, or if you're going to belly it out or just keep it a straight-sided mug, then you don't really have to fuss with that too much. This would just be if you are trying to get it in to the cup holder. I said I was going to dry fit, but then I didn't do it. So I'm going to come around and you can see I'm just a little wider than my bottom. So I'm just going to hug it in. And this is kind of a fun part. I like to spin it. Everything. I'm just easily amused. I'm like, look how much fun this is. Okay, so we're going to bring it in until we match. I'm going to come through and really do some treatment on this bottom anyhow. So this is going to turn out to be really nice and flush. We just want it to match our bottom. It gives you a good checkpoint for that. All right, so that feels good to me. I'm going to come through with our anvil here. I use this to make the lid for the salt pot, but I like to kind of pop our bottom in a little bit. And I'll show you the effect that does. It gives you, I like to fake a foot. Oh boy. I don't mind trimming, but sometimes I'm just like, I think I'm going to fake a foot.
You're doing a production bottom right there.
I am. Yeah. And I do.
Yes.
Someone called my production bottom a dead bottom. And that really
What?
hurt my heart.
I've never heard of that. That is not,
Oh
it's
my
not
gosh.
dead. It's just, we call it production bottom because you're making
It
a lot
hurt
of
my
pots.
heart. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
that's not a nice
but
thing.
we learn. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to carve a little vine down there. And now my bottom isn't dead anymore. So it actually turned out to be a good thing because I was like, oh, I kind of like putting stuff on the bottom. So here's my faking a foot. So you can see I made this one yesterday and it gives you that really nice concave there. And it kind of elevates your foot. It's really, there's nothing functional about it, but it looks pretty, I think. So that is an optional step. I like to put that in there. And then while I've got my bottom accessible, I'm just going to come around and start pushing that slip in. And I'm speeding up for this. You're going to want to make sure that this is nice and straight and nice and filled in. Okay, so now we've got that match. Now it's time to do some more flipping. If you've ever flipped a cake, then you know. So I'm going to put my little wear board there. I'm going to bring over my heavy. I can't believe you carried one of these around. I'm cracking up.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't do it now, but this was years ago. So,
okay.
I mean, this is a long time ago.
I think we should there should be a ClayShare challenge, like who can truck the furthest with their banding wheel.
Okay, yeah, like field day back in school where you would have little events and things. We would have
that should have been the real test.
Banding wheel chucking event.
Pottery
we could
Olympics.
Have a three-legged wheel throwing event. It would have to be like three-armed. You've got people's, anyhow.
Yeah. I think now Kevin is scared because he knows that you have an idea for this year. Now there's going to be Pottery Olympics. I support it. I'm there.
Pottery Olympics. There we go.
Pottery. Okay. So I'm coming through.
Open studio.
Yes. I like it to shot put to see how far. This thing is heavy. Have you weighed it? Do you know? Does anyone know how much a banding wheel weighs?
I don't know.
Someone's going to know. Someone out there knows. Okay. So now we have our mini shark fin, which is my favorite foot tool. And I'm going to come in and you want to plan your bottom out for a couple reasons. I do a lot of carving. I'll give you an example here. So I like to carve into my bottom. I think that this removes weight for me. I was always a little bulky at the bottom. So this makes it pretty and it removes weight, but also because we have our end goal in mind, this needs to fit into a cup holder. So I'm going to come through with our mini shark fin and I'm just pulling up these little rolls of clay. It's a really strong tool, but has some flex. And I use this on the wheel all the time to cut in my foot, to pre-cut in. So I would come in for my own aesthetic and my own design. I like to come in really deeply, and then it kind of raises it off the table a little bit, makes it feel lighter. But the second and the most important function is that we're going to seal our seam. So I'm going to rock it up a little bit, and I'm going to just come around. And I like to seal the seam until I can't see. I don't want to see a line down there. Then I feel really confident that it's nice and sealed. And I carve in pretty deep with my X2, and I don't see any separation even when I carve. I mean, how deep does that tool go? Maybe 1/8 of an inch. So I know that it's pretty well sealed. So I'm not going to fuss too far down here, but you can see. And then you just want to make sure that this is fitting into the cup holder. So make sure this is nice and neat. You won't want to leave, if you're looking for a travel function, this isn't a time where you want to leave a big decorative bottom. You just want to kind of keep it nice and sleek. So if we were just making a tumbler, if we were just making a straight-sided mug, we would be nearly done. And you wouldn't have me talking. So you'd be nearly done in a really good amount of time. So you can see the bottom there is almost completely finished. You just need to sponge that off. But we are going to take it our last step further and we're going to add our lid. So now my rim cone is pretty far in there. If it gets stuck, again, don't panic. You're just going to want to give it a little twist and she'll pop out. So I'll have Scott come over top here. So you can see we have kept our cylinder shape. Looks really lovely. I will come in here. Always treat your seams, treat them right. You can add a little spiral in at the bottom, have some fun there. And if you notice, almost all of our cornstarch is gone. So if that was a concern, you could come through here and you could sponge the rest away. I'm just going to treat this vertical seam. And then I'm going to come through, make sure I'm nice and sealed at the bottom. And then we are ready to put our top on. So I like to think about, and you know what I didn't do today that I usually do? I kind of bring my rubber tip tool and I like to accentuate my seam. I like to bring that out. I don't want to really hide it. Knock something there. So you could do that. You could do any more design elements. I'm right-handed, and in my brain, it makes sense that the seam kind of goes into the crook of my fingers. you could really decide if this is where your handle is going to go, you'd want to plan that. So I know that that's going to be the right side of my mug. So my lid is going to face me. So as I am drinking, that's tipping up towards me. Here's my dry fit. You can see we're pretty close there. Sometimes it'll get wider because of the rim cone, and then you just come in and do that hugging action. And so that looks good. I'm going to mark it here, there, and there. And then we're going to do some more scoring. Any questions for me, Jess?
So we have some questions about the products and everything. So
Sure.
I thought you could go through and talk about those when you get this done, because there was some folks that want to know the different sizes and the extensions if you want to make a tall one and everything.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Let me see if there was anything that was related to the make part. Most people are just really excited about it. They can't wait to make it. The mustache mug is a winner. For all the
mustache mug
out there. Yeah.
Hey, there are at least 12 Glacier men, I heard. So
we have at least 12. We've decided
at least 12.
There's at least 12 people. No.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that including Kevin?
I think so, but Kevin's not mustached, you see. So,
well,
but he would still
not
drink
yet. Not
well,
yet.
He's tried. He's tried. It's not necessarily a good thing. So
maybe he hasn't had the right motivation.
He is not.
Maybe he just needs the mustache mug to motivate him. Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
I know. So yeah, if you folks have questions about anything, the type of clay you use, you said you standard clay.
Standard. Yep.
Any
standard.
Clay.
Any clay. The reason why I say that is to just make sure that you're keeping an eye on your shrinkage. You just want, so the jig is made for, we did all the US measurements, but making, Jess, like everyone makes differently. And I know that mine ends up at about 1/4 inch there. And that's kind of how we like the standard that we used. But if you're, if you like to be thicker or thinner, you just want to make sure that it's going to fit before you tell people this will fit your cup holder. Just make sure that it actually fits a cup holder.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to come through. Go ahead, dear.
Yes. So folks were asking about how to prevent the lip from bowing, but you don't. I saw you pressed it down. You want it to bow.
I do.
So you're looking for a bow. So this is like this is at an advantage if your things tend to warp. You're making it warp on purpose for that lid.
It does. You're really
warp when you want it to.
Exactly. It will slump in the kiln. This is my wheel throne. So what I found, this isn't the original I made, but what I found is that it worked out because the liquid flows out. So it's really comfy. So this end is really smooth. That
would be nicer on your mouth. Like when you put your mouth to it, it's just a nicer mouth feel.
Yep. And then I like to just tap it in just because it's going to kind of already do that. So I like to make it a design feature on purpose. All right.
And I know you mentioned 1/4 inch thick approximately is what you like to do for the thickness, but people could experiment and do a little thinner, a little thicker, whatever they want to do. There's nothing set in stone until it's fired, folks. So I mean,
exactly.
You do what you want. So
and I don't roll out. Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to say, I don't roll out 1/4 inch. I roll out, I think, 5/8, 3/8. I
go 3/8. I do 3/8. Yep. Yeah, I go thicker, and then when I texture or carve, it gets thinner.
Exactly.
And stretching and volume and all that. So now, folks are asking about a separate extender to make it taller. Do you buy a second jig? How do you get it taller?
Sure. So you would buy the original jig. Sorry. The keys. Okay, this is a good time to talk. The keys are made to be loose. Once you start working them and they get clay on them, they will for sure stick in there. So if you pull it out and this key is really loose, it's meant to be like that because it will start kind of beefing up a little bit in there. So these extenders are sold separately. So you would buy your original jig and then you would add on whatever height. So you really only need one of this size. And then you could add the extenders. And then with our other sizes, because you guys are kind of getting this premiere. We just debuted the Handbuilding Jig, about a month ago, maybe. And so we are working on making extenders for our existing jigs. Scott's working on a couple like really exciting shapes. Maybe you wouldn't even expect to be able to have a jig for. So we've got a lot in the works. But for right now, for this travel mug, base jig, base cutter, and then you would add your extenders on.
Now, where do you find the extenders? People were looking on the website and they weren't seeing them.
Are they not live? Okay. So sorry. We will put them on there.
Okay. So extenders are coming.
Extenders are coming. They are listed. I kind of hid some stuff from the website to kind of prepare for today. And I don't think I clicked like unhide because I'm
she'll
super
get them up
computer
later,
savvy.
folks. So by the time you're
Yes, I
watching
will.
this as a replay, they'll probably be there. So
They
there
will
are
be up to
extenders.
date. Yeah, they'll be up to date. It's just
Yay.
a matter of just opening, just unhiding. So here with this lid, I just want to say I fuss here a lot because this is where the mouth is going to hit. And I tackle my little red rib and I come over and I really scoop that. This is another benefit of thicker clay. It gives you more freedom to kind of shape the form how you want because you're going to take off. You're going to shave off a bit here. You're going to lose texture here, and that's not a bad thing. This is where the mouth is going to be, so we don't need any cracking or bumpies there. And most people don't mind. I haven't had anyone complain that there is not texture all the way up. So I will come back and do my fussy thing later, and I will really bend this over so you can see this is our finished product. You don't want to see any lines there. And you want to mind your corners. If your lid is going to lift, it's going to be right at these 2 points. So really make sure you're slipping and scoring. Make sure you're not leaving a lot of slip there. It needs to be dry and cleaned up and then really soft there. So this point, these 2 points are really important. And then making sure, am I in shot here? Making sure that you have this nice, smooth, and then the concave is important. So the liquid will flow out and it will naturally slump anyhow. But now I want to show you how to put our drinking holes in. And then I think we're almost done here.
Oh, yeah. We're going over a bit. So I'm giving you an extra couple minutes because I want you to get, it's okay. It's okay. That's all right. There's a lot. There's a lot to cover. So
I am a talker.
It's all good.
It's ClayShareCon one day for me. I'll reserve Saturday for myself next year. Oh boy. Okay. So
I'll have to give you a longer slot.
Oh my gosh. That's the story of my life. I think I need longer time. Okay. So I just use a Kemper hole punch. I think this came in like the basic kit. And I eyeball. I like the 3-hole. That's how I do my coffee pour overs too. I feel like it just gives it a really nice flow. I eyeball this. I'm like, this feels like the middle to me. And then I push in. You'll want to support because you don't want this to cave in too far and you don't want to lift your seams here. So I'm punching in and then I'm following my rim shape. So this hole will be slightly higher this way. And then you want to leave a good gap because we're going to extend these holes. We're going to make them just a little bit bigger so we don't get glaze stuck in there. So boom, 3 holes. If you wanted to do an egg separator, or if you come over this way a bit, this one's for an iced coffee tumbler for myself. This will fit a straw.
For a straw.
So
nice.
Yep. Yeah. So I just bent the rim over with our little our anvil, but you could do any drinking spout. This is not for a straw. It could, I suppose you could fit a skinny one, but you could do any kind of drinking hole you wanted. That's all up to you. And I'm just going to grab my studio brush. I'm going to come in here, pop the little schnibbies in, and then just come and roll this in until I feel like the holes are a good size. And last thing, and then I can take some more questions. You want to make sure to get under here and get those rough, it'll leave clay built up at the bottom. And if you're washing with a bottle brush or by hand, that will get sharp. So don't forget to clean up these holes underneath because people will want to get in there to clean it up.
Perfect.
So
yeah.
Ta-da.
All right. There.
Our
fabulous. Mug. Thank you so much. We're out of time. Welcome. I'd keep you, but we have to get our next person set up.
Oh, so absolutely. I'm around for questions. So much, Email
Alex.
me.
I'm so glad you joined us here and shared this hand building jig with us. I can't wait to make one. And anybody has any questions, you can reach out to her, Alexandria Pottery Co. I've shared the link to her website multiple times, so you can find it there. You can also find it on claysharecon.com. Thanks, Alex.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
All right. So use that code, save, get yourself a hand building jig or any of the other tools they have. She's got the cones right here and all the great stuff. If you have any questions, again, reach out to her. The discount code is going to be good through the end of March. So you've got time to shop and think about it. I know there's a lot of information. And Alex also has a whole bunch of videos on using her tools and making mugs and things on her site. And you just check it out there and you can watch it. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Terry from Fired On, and she's going to talk to you about, we're going to be making a mug with a wraparound. So wraparound decal, I believe. All right, we'll be back.